So, welcome to LiberalViewer First Wednesday Live Q&A, the show that I do the first Wednesday of every month to answer my viewers' questions, both those questions posted online since last month's show and those questions viewers of the live show post down in the comments section. So, if you're watching live, try to post some good ones down there. I'll also talk a little bit about my continuing struggle with YouTube for rejecting some of my videos from getting monetized because the content is supposedly too sensitive for advertisers. And I did get a couple good questions posted during the last month. One about the constitutionality of polygamy and one about how I elect my clips for the Sunday shows. But speaking of clips for the Sunday shows, before I get to the questions and stuff, I wanted to start off with a couple clips I was sad to see didn't make it into the recorded version of my Sunday show. I'm not sure exactly why. So I want to start off replaying those first two clips that didn't make it. First, there's a really funny one about former New York Mayor Rudy Giuliani's claim that President Obama doesn't love America. I couldn't resist replaying. It's a parody of Fox News' Real Story with Gretchen Carlson. This is from Saturday Night Live on last Saturday night, with Vanessa Bayer playing Gretchen Carlson and Taran Killam as Rudy Giuliani, pointing out something that was particularly silly about the way Rudy Giuliani phrased his attack on President Barack Obama, as you can see over in this clip.
Welcome back. I'm Gretchen Carlson. Us now is former Mayor Rudy Giuliani, who got in some hot water last week at a private dinner for Governor Scott Walker when he said, quote, "I know this is a horrible thing to say, but I do not believe that the president loves America." Since then, Mr. Giuliani has been arguing his point in the Wall Street Journal and many shows just like this one. And he's certainly not backing down. Are you, Mr. Mayor?
No, not at all, Gretchen. I'm sorry, but this president doesn't have the same love of our great country. Look, I know this is a horrible thing to say, but he was brought up different. He's just not like the rest of us. I mean, is that too much?
Absolutely not. You warned us that what you were about to say would be horrible, so it's fine.
Yeah, that's the part I really like, because that when I did the analysis on the Sunday show the previous week, no one really mentioned the fact that by couching it in that I'm about to say something horrible phrasing, that somehow that makes it okay that what he said turned out to be horrible. Anyway, I think that's kind of silly, but I thought it was worth pointing it out, even though that Rudy Giuliani scandal is kind of an old scandal now. But the next topic, the clip that didn't get into the Sunday show, is on net neutrality, which I was sad to see didn't get a lot of coverage on the Sunday morning shows last Sunday and then got cut out of mine. But it was a really big deal that the FCC passed these new rules protecting net neutrality, as Senator Al Franken pointed out in his discussion with CNN's Brian Stelter on the CNN program Reliable Sources last Sunday, over in this clip.
Well, it was a big win for those of us who've been fighting to preserve net neutrality, but we're going to have to stay vigilant on this.
Our internet didn't suddenly change on Thursday. You know, we're still getting the same connections at home. Will we ever notice these rules go into effect, and do you believe they will be upheld in court?
I believe they'll be upheld in court. The fact of the matter is this is about nothing changing. Net neutrality has been the architecture of the internet from the very beginning. It's about all content on the internet being treated the same. The over 4 million Americans submitted comments to the FCC, more than double the number of comments that have ever been submitted to the FCC on any other issue. Vast majority for continuing net neutrality against this fast lane, slow lane, paid prioritization.
Are we at the
So, yeah, that's, I think, a pretty simple explanation of net neutrality for those people who don't understand it, who think it's too complicated. And that was actually one of the questions that Brian Stelter asked Senator Al Franken, whether he thought that people thought this was too complicated and that's why they'd be able to get away with it, or Al Franken said something about that. And basically it's, treating all content equally, no, fast lane and slow lane and paid priority lane, and hopefully it will end up being keeping things open and free on the internet and not a government takeover like I've seen some libertarians, and of course Fox News has spread a lot of or had a lot of scare tactics about net neutrality, that it's a government takeover of the internet. Of course, it's not a done deal yet because Congress can still override what the FCC does. But anyway, I wanted to play that clip for you because it got cut from the Sunday show. And now I'm going to get to the couple questions that I had people ask me since my show last month. This is a question I think I got about a week ago from, sorry.
Well, it was a bit...
Went through all those clips there. This is a question I got from Harvey Cotton. I guess it was just a couple days ago. Why don't the First Amendment freedoms in regard to religion ever extend to people who believe in plural marriage? Religious exemptions can be applied to the draft, enforcement of involuntary homicide laws, and the sincerely held beliefs of companies, but never for Muslims, sects of the Mormon faith, and others who may hold plural marriage as a tenet of their faith. How is this constitutional? Well, I'm not sure everything in the premise of that question was correct about, I'm not sure what he meant by involuntary homicides. Maybe that has to do with like Christian scientists not taking their kids to doctors or something, I'm not sure. But as for the polygamy issue, there was a Supreme Court case on polygamy. I put a link down to it in the video description. It's a Reynolds versus United States from 1878. That's the last time polygamy came up before the Supreme Court. And basically it found that there was this long history where Utah got admitted as a state to the United States in exchange for laws against polygamy, and the Mormon Church actually gave up polygamy. If I remember, I think it was Brigham Young had a vision that, no more polygamy for Mormons, and it just happened to coincide with the political needs of Utah at that time, if I am remembering the history correctly. But the law was challenged, and it came up to the Supreme Court in Reynolds versus United States. And I've copied two key paragraphs. Here's one of the two key paragraphs. You can see it starts off and says, all the way back to the time of James I, English common law has said that polygamy is against the law, so it's always been part of our law. And then it talks about this like factual thing I have highlighted here. Professor Lieber says polygamy leads to the patriarchal principle, and which, when applied to large communities, fetters the people in stationary despotism, while that principle cannot long exist in connection with monogamy. I'm not sure what they're referring to there, but basically they said that, it's a basis of society, and it's always been illegal, and it would be, that it would be really detrimental to society if we allowed polygamy. So that was one paragraph there. And then the second paragraph, this is basically kind of like employment division versus Smith. So here's the law of the organization of society under the exclusive dominion of the United States. It's provided that plural marriage shall not be allowed. Can a man excuse his practices to the contrary because of his religious belief? To permit this would be to make the professed doctrines of religious belief superior to the law of the land, and in effect to permit every citizen to become a law unto himself. Government could exist only in name under such circumstances. So that's also from the Supreme Court case that found it was constitutional for laws to outlaw polygamy. And it's kind of what Scalia said in Employment Division versus Smith back in the, I think, 1980s. If I'm remembering I think 1987, 80, I can't remember for sure. But there was a Supreme Court case I've mentioned in previous shows where some Native Americans who took peyote got fired from their jobs after failing a drug test, and they wanted to collect unemployment insurance because, to collect unemployment insurance, you can't be fired for cause. And so they said, well, it wasn't a just cause because we have a religious exemption. And in Employment Division versus Smith, they said, no, the drug laws may not fit with your religion, but if it's a generally applicable law that's not targeted right at your religion, you have to obey it. But then Congress passed the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, and that was the big issue in Hobby Lobby, where Congress tried to undo what they did in Employment Division versus Smith and say that if laws place an undue burden on a religious observer, then the law has to accommodate the religious observation. That only applies to federal law, so it wouldn't necessarily apply to the polygamy case, which is state law, though a lot of states have their own versions of RFRA. And anyway, I think I'm getting sort of long involved into the answer to that question. And then before I get to the second question, I also wanted to talk a little bit about my struggle with YouTube on my videos not getting approved for monetization because they're supposedly too sensitive. Sometimes when I talk about like Muslims or Islam, or I'm not sure, I put a link down in the video description to a short video I made talking about this problem. And since then, another one of my videos got rejected, and it's the most innocuous video of all. It's called ISIS Hates Vegetarians, and it's just a clip of U.S. Senator Lindsey Graham saying the silly thing about how ISIS wants to kill Christians, Jews, and vegetarians. And I kind of make fun of that in like a 2 or 3 minute video. There's nothing shocking or offensive or sensitive. And even though it got rejected, so I sent this, I got an email back from YouTube Help showing me, saying, look in the help section, it will tell you. Well, there is this help section. I put a link down to this in the video description, creating advertiser-friendly content. And if you look at this, there are these broad categories of offensive, inappropriate material. But then it specifically says that if it's newsworthy and meant to inform, then it shouldn't be inappropriate for advertisers. And so I sent an email Monday morning to YouTube Help here. Hi Denzel, thanks for the link to the YouTube Help Center, but those resources also show you made a mistake rejecting my video for monetization. The most relevant article there gives several broad categories of inappropriate content that might apply to news stories, like videos about violent extremism or natural disasters and death, but prefaces those descriptions by saying content will still be advertiser-friendly when, quote, the context is usually newsworthy or comedic, where the creator's intent is to inform or entertain and not offend or shock. My content could not be more newsworthy given that I'm literally showing and commenting on network news clips. This specific video you rejected informs viewers about a U.S. senator talking about U.S. foreign policy on an ABC News program, and no reasonable person could watch this video and feel offended or shocked by it. So your own policy is written to make sure news content like mine that's meant to inform does not get rejected for monetization as too sensitive. Given that the YouTube Help Center resources also show you made a mistake, please correct your error immediately. Of course, I sent that Monday morning. I haven't heard back, and I'm starting to think I'm not going to hear back. It's not because my argument was so great. I think that, once you exhaust their like cut and paste form responses, they just, stop responding because they have all the power and they don't have to respond. But anyway, I wanted to update you on that. It's really frustrating. It's kind of silly, and it's, in a way, it chills free speech, for at least for YouTube partners. There are a lot, there are thousands and thousands of YouTube partners who are trying to make, some sort of earning, earn some sort of revenue from their YouTube videos. And if they start imposing this kind of, sensitive subject matter restraint on people, people are just not going to talk about, things that my videos are like completely innocuous. I never use profanity. I never say anything. I mean, I make some people angry with some of my arguments, but I think that I am a pretty tame commentator compared to some on YouTube, and yet somehow I am not getting monetized for those videos. Anyway, so then the second question that I got, this was just like an hour or so before the show started, from Terry Alther. Question for First Wednesday. I've always wondered why you never use videos from the Young Turks, How the World Works, The Blaze, TV, Reason, etc. for your first Sunday live clip roundup. Though your analysis of the corporate media is good, its lousy, pathetic nature will lead to its demise, to alternative media, especially with the issue of YouTube refusing to monetize your videos. You will certainly make more money and gain more views if you go alternative and staying mainstream. Well, I mean, I don't know if I used other clips, if I would make more money, or I'm not sure exactly where that argument goes. But in terms of where I get the clips, basically it's just because I started the show because I watch all those 5 shows every morning. I've been doing it some of them aren't that old, but going back to like This Week with David Brinkley, I remember watching that in the 80s, so that's coming up on 25 years or so I've been watching. So like every Sunday morning I've been watching those same shows, and there is some limitations to what you get from the corporate media. I'm seeing a lot of that in this Noam Chomsky book I'm reading, Manufacturing Consent, where he talks about the way the various filters that make the corporate media be sort of yes men to the people in power, the rich corporations and the government, and there's definitely some truth to that, although not exactly in the ways that Noam Chomsky was talking about it back in the Reagan administration, because a lot of things have changed. But there are definitely limitations to the corporate media. But that show, I kind of have fun getting it all together on Sunday. It's kind of because it's a deadline project. I try to start the show at 6:30 every Sunday, and the first show starts 12 hours before that, and there are 5 hours worth of shows, and I have to like watch them, take notes, capture all the clips, process all the clips, put them in the right order, and it's always a race every Sunday. And I think choosing those 5 shows, even though I go outside of it a little bit every now and then, it's kind of it might make sense to use clips from other places, but opening it up to more places would just make it too hard to do the show, because choosing those 5 shows is kind of a limit, and then a couple little other clips every now and then, and the comedy clips. But anyway, I don't know if that completely answers your question, Terry, but I hope it was at least a little bit helpful. Now let me see, I've got a couple dozen people watching the show live, and let me see. Oh, Paranor 001 says, Nimoy picture on right. Go boldly where you no one. Yeah, that's over here. This is actually a coffee cup, Leonard Nimoy coffee cup. I have a Mr. Spock coffee cup that I still have up there as a tribute, because Mr. Spock was really important to me growing up. I have a 50th birthday coming up, of all things, sometime in the near future, which means that when I was very young, I started watching Star Trek. I can't remember whether the first Star Trek episode I watched was like part of the original broadcast or one of the early reruns, but I've been watching, I watched that old original Star Trek series throughout my whole childhood, and reruns, and Mr. Spock was always kind of a hero of mine, because, he didn't really fit in a lot of ways, and so I could relate to him in that way. And of course, his stoicism and and his logical mindset, that was always an ideal to aspire to for me. I don't know exactly why, but anyway, I do have the Mr. Spock cup up there still, and I hear sounds like somebody's barking off in the distance. That's Sandy barking at somebody. Which may mean it's almost time to end the show, but I do want to take a couple more questions from those of you who showed up live. Yeah, Clip Culture 5 said picture on a cup. That's right. Let me see. Let's see. I don't know what this LV is. AA, and I just doxed him. Well, someone actually posted on one of my videos in the last 12 or, I read all the comments, and someone said that I should say my name during my videos and let people know who I am. I don't mind giving my name out. I showed my email address when I showed that email, and I think my name may have been on there, but my name is Alan Ash. I'm a former lawyer, stay-at-home dad. What I bring to these analysis shows that I do is I was a criminal defense lawyer, and I've been a volunteer ACLU, both lawyer and then activist for many years, and so I know something about those subjects. And also I have a degree in history from one of those Ivy League universities, although that was many years ago. But that gives me a little bit of a background for the analysis I do, so you don't have to dox me. It's not a secret who I am. Here's one more. Let's see. The analytical failure asks, LV, how do you feel about Congress letting the leader of an apartheid state address this nation and attempt to hijack our foreign policy from its rightful place in our president's hands. Well, I actually watched the apartheid state. I assume that's Israel. That's might be a little bit on the harsh side, although I definitely think that have studied the plight of the Palestinians, and they are oppressed and occupied people. But that wasn't even the gist of the question. The gist of the question was, what do I think about the Netanyahu speech, which I watched live yesterday. And, I mean, in a way, it was kind of weird that the Congress was so... I don't know why it was that the Congress, especially the Republicans, wanted to show such fervor in their support for this right-wing Israeli leader who has been in the business of scaring people about Iran and other Middle East threats without a lot of results proving his predictions correct in the past. And, I've seen a lot of clips over the last several days. One of him predicting how deposing Saddam Hussein would lead to, he guaranteed it would lead to good results in the Middle East, and that doesn't seem to have come to fruition. And then there are a lot of quotes of him over like the last dozen years claiming that Iran is 1 year, 3 years, or whatever away from a bomb. And it was kind of weird for the Congress to invite a foreign leader to address them about, in opposition to the president's foreign policy. That is somewhat unprecedented. I don't know if I would go so far as to hijacking American foreign policy, but I do think that it isn't really good for the United States, and it's not good for Israel. And it's not good for Middle East peace. So it's not good. That's my answer. It's not good. Did I make that clear? Let me see if I can look down there real quick and oh, right, okay. Let's see. I see people talking about all this. So, talking about the answers I just gave. So, I guess I'm going to finish up the show. We're like already over 20 minutes, and the shorter it is, the more people will watch it anyway. I will have an excerpt video from the Sunday show up tomorrow morning, although anyone who watched this, you can watch the whole Sunday show already, except for the first 6 minutes, which we're missing for some reason. But I will be doing my Sunday show again, 6:30 p.m. Pacific time. It should be lighter out because of daylight savings this Sunday, so might even be like almost as light as it is now because of the it's almost 5 o'clock, and with the time change. I hope to see you all on Sunday at 6:30 p.m. for my Sunday clip roundup, and until then, I guess I'll see you all around the internet.